Drug trafficking and abuse is globally on the rise, contributing to international security concerns and threat to governance around the world, with Nigeria trapped in the trending socio-economic problem, which requires synergy with international organizations to control the flow of illicit drugs and block financial leakages arising from the unlawful transaction. The continued involvement of youths in the practice of this banned activity is causing the nation huge cost to manage the phenomenon and adequately address its consequences, which most times degenerates to crimes and failure in the moral system of the society. The whooping sums of money lost to drug smuggling and image laundering of the country by drug pushers is bringing stakeholders together to fine-tune modern methods and strengthens capacity of operatives to curb the menace. Now, the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, which has the mandate to fight this disaster, is devising sophisticated means to clamp down on these unscrupulous elements with the aim of minimizing or completely eliminating the social and economic pandemic under the administration of Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa. Tonight on the program, we shall be looking at the revived fight against illicit drug and cartels as the world commemorates the International Day of Drug Abuse and Illicit Substances. I am Omini Odan. Welcome to the program. Before we begin, let's take a listen to this background put together by Abdulmalik Hassan.
Drug abuse, a social problem which the society is battling to tackle. Stakeholders believe that drug abuse contributes to the contemporary security challenges in the country, such as insurgency, banditry, robbery and rape, among other social vices.
High time we begin to see critical stakeholders begin to look beyond criminalizing drug users, to beginning to see it with the lens of the health impact on these individuals. You see, until we have healthy individuals, we can have a healthy society.
Though it is a tug of war of some sort, NDLEA, however, giving in its best to stem in the tide by blocking the supply chain of illicit substances in Nigeria. The agency has now seized over 2 million kilograms of these dangerous substances, worth over 90 billion naira. The seized substances include cocaine, cannabis sativa, skunk and tramadol capsules, among other hard drugs. NDLEA equally made arrest of over 2,000 persons, while it has filed about 2,100 drug cases in court and secured more than 500 convictions, with 1,549 cases pending so far.
When we seize, they are properly documented in each state command under the direct control of the state commander. We have exhibit keepers who are trusted, carefully selected officials, and the exhibit rooms are well secured. Things are documented because of evidence in court. So very soon, you are going to see heightened activities from highly motivated personnel that are well poised to face the traffickers and all those involved in this nefarious activity.
This, the chairman of NTLEA, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, says the fight against illicit substances and trafficking cannot be won without the collective responsibility of all.
Criminality is a hydra-headed monster that must be crushed if we must move forward as a nation. We need the cooperation of all and sundry. We all owe Nigeria the duty of ensuring that drug abuse and trafficking do not thrive in this country.
It is hoped that the renewed vigor will contribute to ensuring a crime-free society. In Abuja, Abdulmalik Hassan, NTA News.
The revived onslaught against drug abuse and cartels in Nigeria is the focus of the program tonight. At some point, we shall be opening our phone line, and if we're true to you, please go straight to the point in making your concern, raising your concern, and asking your questions, and our team of guests will address them. And please don't rule in doing this. Turn down the volume of your television set to avoid the hallback or echo. We shall be doing about 4 centers tonight in sustaining the conversation. We shall be going to Kano, Lagos, Maiduguri, and Makadi. Tonight, I'm being joined by the Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, also former military governor of Borno and Lagos State, and also at the time served as High Commissioner of Nigeria to South Africa, Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwa, retired. Good to have you on the program tonight.
Glad to be here.
Also tonight, I'm being joined by country representatives of United Nations Office on Drug and Crime, Mr. Oliver Stolpe. Welcome to Tuesday Live.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Magdalene Igbolo is the Associate Professor of Sociology and Head of Department of Sociology, Faculty of Social Sciences, University of Abuja. Good to see you on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Also tonight, Dr. Chuma Mak Olex Igbukwe, Consultant Psychiatrist, Substance Misuse Specialist. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Joining us from our Kanu station is Dr. Yao Ahmed Sarah, Educational Psychologist. Welcome to this live.
Very much.
Okay, gentlemen and ladies, let's begin. Your Excellency, it was as though drug trafficking and illegal substances was not available in the country. But surprising to Nigerians, you're barely a few weeks old in office, and just a few days ago you announced that since you came on board, so far over 2,000 arrests have been made. What was the magic behind this?
Well, thanks be to God, we were tasked in the NDLEA by the President. It's actually his mandate that we're executing. And what it took was first to motivate the officials, equip them, and make some adjustments on strategy. And working closely with our partners, we were able to execute. The men, officers and men of the NDLEA are very committed professionals. And once they get the necessary tools that I've just mentioned now, the motivation, some equipment, and the appropriate strategies to get on with the job, they will execute. That's actually the secret of what we have been able to do in the last 5 months. And we're just beginning.
So in essence, what message are you sending to those who have plans or who are already in it and they don't want to pull off, or those who have plans and they want to come in?
In short, they know they have to contend with the NDLEA. So it's easier for them to quit the trade because wherever they come, we'll be there. They'll meet us, as we have witnessed in the last 5 months or so. We are prepared, and we're sending out the warning they should just keep off the trade.
Okay, and in line with the focus tonight, revived onslaught against drug abuse and cartel, the growing menace of drug abuse and its negative effect on society. Are you worried or you're surmounting it?
Well, it's it's worrisome, actually, when you look at the prevalence in Nigeria, which is almost 3 times the global average. With the last survey, the UNODC Ministry of Health survey of 2018, 14.3 million Nigerians. Very worrisome, very worrisome. And from the World Drug Report, the cannabis, the 14.3 million I'm talking about is 15 to 64 years of age. And the World Drug Report actually puts cannabis use, I'm just taking that out on its own. You won't believe it. We are #1 in the world. We expect to be the leaders in the world in technology or in science or in education, you know, something positive. But here we are being rated champions on use of cannabis. So it's very worrisome. But the good thing, though, is that at the end of the day, we're going to bring it down. The purpose of our strategies is to exterminate if we can, or at least control it. And at the same time, all the steps through the drug demand reduction efforts will be to prevent it. Because when you say 14.3 million are using drugs, that means in Nigeria, there's 200 million minus 14.3 million that are not. And so we also have to face that to prevent them getting in. Otherwise, when you face 14.3 and you leave the others, it's going to be like pouring water into a basket, and it will just continue to replicate. So the strategies have to encapsulate prevention, and then of course treatment and aftercare.
Okay. Mr. Oliver, in a couple of, we are within the period where we're about to observe the World Day of Drug 2021, and the theme for this year says, share facts on drugs, save lives. What informed this?
Well, what informed is that there's a lot of misinformation actually on drug use, on drugs themselves. And one very important step, basically, first and foremost, you need to understand the problem you're dealing with. So we want very much to encourage everyone to know the facts about drugs. So that's really on all of us to inform ourselves better, and to make sure when we are sharing facts on drugs, that these facts are actually coming from verified sources, such as UNODC, NDLEA, NAFDAC, and other trustworthy sources. Because otherwise we are risking really to, for example, further fueling the stigmatization of drug use, stigmatizing people and preventing them from accessing healthcare, and all sorts of negative effects that we could otherwise be perpetuating, including wrong, actually, approaches to drug treatment and counseling, as we have seen it in the past. So it's very important that essentially our entire approach is evidence-based, is fact-based, and is well-informed.
Quite disturbing, the information given by the chairman of NDLEA in Nigeria. What is the World Drug Report like from your end for this year for Nigeria?
Well, the World Drug Report is going to be launched in about 2 days from now, so I'm only permitted, so to speak, to share a few facts. But one of the things, and Chairman just mentioned it, I think, which is quite preoccupying when we're talking about cannabis use, for example, that the strength of cannabis has quadrupled in the past years in terms of its potency. But at the same time, people are far less concerned about and informed about the health implications of cannabis use. So you see actually somehow a contradictory development in that sense. Another, I think, very preoccupying development that we need to embrace ourselves for is the growth of drug use specifically in Africa. Just simply because of the growing population, the youth bulge, we will be facing already by 2030 a 40% increase of drug users. That means for Nigeria, for example, that from the 14+ million that we have at the moment, we're probably going to be around 20 million. And of course, that goes on against a health system that is already quite overburdened and probably not well prepared, at least not presently well prepared, to deal with the counseling and the treatment that will be required for these drug users, or at least some of these drug users.
Okay, thank you. Let's proceed to Dr. Magdalene Igbolo. Dr. Magdalene Igbolo, from the sociological perspective, I want to throw a question across to you with this quote. Prevention of drugs use aims to help people, not only those of younger age, to avoid or delay the initiation of use of psychoactive substances, or if they have already started, to avoid the development of harmful use of substance and disorders. Within your ambit, are you ready or available to surmount by way of counseling and other activities you're supposed to be doing to check those who abuse drugs?
Thank you very much for the question and for bringing me on the program. Now, for us in sociology, drug abuse has been a major subject of concern, particularly because the young people are the ones that are, seriously involved in this activity. Although from research, it's stated that between the ages of 14 and 64 or thereabouts. So that even takes us beyond those who are young people to middle-aged persons. That's a whole lot for the country to handle, and even for us in the educational system. There's so much that we need to do at that level in terms of counseling young people and who are already involved in drug abuse or drug use, as well as those whom we are trying to prevent from getting into the use of drug. So much is there to be done, and for us in the system, it's we try to do our best to give them the information that is available. I'm glad that the theme for this year is share the facts, and so if these facts are made available, I think it will go a long way in helping, particularly in prevention now, preventing most young people from going into drug use and abuse, because like we said, some of the people who are involved in it are just there because they really do understand the health implication of using drugs, the long-run effects of using drugs. So if this information is made available to them, I think it will go a long way in helping.
Okay, to Dr. Chuma Max Olex. You're already a psychiatrist, and when we say psychiatry, a lot of us understand by common sense what it means. What is the influx like currently, as of today?
Thank you very much. Perhaps if we can have a little bit of look into the background of this, so it gives us a better understanding. It's very important for us to really understand why these young people get into this habit and how they acquire these drugs. Understanding this and also possibly the impact on them will help a long way in drafting the right intervention to address the myriad of problems. We understand that the vast majority of Nigerian youths who are on drugs come from the low socioeconomic group. And when we said a huge percentage of those are there, and this includes, apart from them, we have students, and then we have, bus drivers and the whole lot. And access to this drug is freely available. Either get them from pharmacies on the streets, or perhaps from patent stores or from open market or traders. The access to these drugs, apart from cannabis, we have the benzodiazepines, we have the morphines, or the similar type drugs. And even now, they are beginning to mix up their own cocktails, which goes beyond just importation of these drugs to cocktails. And we know for a long time, young people have been sniffing glue, aerosols, and the like, even urine, cow dung. So it's a whole lot of issues. But the question becomes, what is the benefit for them? Because people indulge in actions when there are clear benefits. Because in trying to address it, we need to understand what makes it attractive to this group of people. The fact remains that a number of them enjoy the initial high, the occasional high that takes them away from their immediate environment and immediate problems. So for them it's there. For some it's relaxing. It takes away the stress, which you expect in that large percentage of that age group who are jobless, who are doing nothing other than sitting around and looking for what mischief to get into. So they do get those, and some will tell you that they find it therapeutic in terms of medicinal effects on them, and so many other reasons that they all give, which to them it's valid, but to you and I may not be valid, but the fact remains it's how they see it that influences the way they behave and their actions, as well as interventions. Overall, with this large number of people taking such illicit drugs, and with our growing population, I think we're estimated to be close to 200 million. So we are talking about a significant percentage, a significant number of people getting into this habit. And I think we talked about cannabis, but my experience, particularly among young girls, is the use of cough syrups. I've been in a number of secondary schools in and around here where just a routine search of school bags reveals so many bottles of cough syrups. So, which is also another way in which young people gradually get into this habit. So, an impact, obviously, I think the chairman did briefly touch on that, which includes the effect on the physical health, the mental health, of course, social well-being of such people, and of course, the impact on public health and the economy of our country. So these are real issues. They have real impacts, and we need to address them effectively. The war on drugs, this particular war that we're embarking on, it's a good one, but we also need to look at how the interventions we need to do to stop it. Because if we stop using the drugs, if the young people stop using the drugs, then there will be no market for it, or the market is reduced. So in terms of mental health, we know there's a prevalence of depression, anxiety, memory defects. You can have things like stroke, brain damage, and suicide. It's highly prevalent compared to the normal population amongst drug users. Then we also have a whole lot of, we've had recent unrest in our country, crimes, terrorism, and co. When you go through this number of young people involved, you find a huge amount of them, a large chunk of them were on drugs, if not all, prior to committing such criminal acts. We see it with robbers. It's just prevalent, and clearly underscores the need for international effort to address it, and more importantly, the effort by our country to address it, because we see it as a real problem that calls for stakeholders from across the fields to come together, put heads together, and look for effective actions to address them.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ahmed Sarah, stop the use of drug and it will not be available for sale in the market. What really makes this stuff attractive?
You see, the entire issues regarding drugs addiction, drugs abuse, and even other substances that are being abused by our youth, it doesn't just have to stay around the corner of stopping the supply. The supply is where the cartels are making a lot of money, systematically destroying the mental health of our youths and the entire nation, increasing the rate of crime and all those things that the society is always prone about. But you see, the issue is that when we block the supply, the demand will likely continue, and these drugs addicts will imbibe other ways by which they can satisfy their intoxication issues. Substances are there in some places. Shisha, that is considered legal, is being used to intoxicate people. Even cow dungs, as just stated, and many other things that you can think about. So as far as we are concerned in psychology, we always look at the antecedents, then the behavior and the consequences. What are antecedents? What are those issues that prompt these people into drugs abuse initially? In the first instance, what have are those issues that drag them into this menace. Then this is the behavior they are exhibiting, and then what are the consequences to themselves, what are the consequences to the nation, and what are we going to do? In the parlance of law and law enforcement agencies, the issue is that they take pride in the number of arrests, the number of suspects that are taken to court, the number of judgments they receive, and all those things. And we are making so much progress, especially these 5 to 6 months. But you see, the other issue that is important is we are growing in population in this country. And from what United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime are envisaging, we are going to have almost 20 million drugs users in the next 5 to 10 years. Which means what is also important that we are going to focus on is what are the antecedents, what are those issues that triggered these children or these people to take drugs or something of that nature. And then when you go to that side, you will discover that there are many issues, most of them that has to do with the children's parental upbringing, then stressful life events that are there within as the children, as people are growing older. Then there are issues of poverty and all those, so many of them. So the human mind, initially as the person is growing, his mind is being conditioned to something. And if the mind is being conditioned to something, what are those conditioners? What are we going to do now to see that the children that are coming off, instead of them imbibing this type of menace that we are now fighting, what do we do in order to see that we no longer have even the children that are coming up that are even interested in drugs? This is one aspect of it. And secondly, we look at those that are already in. What do we do as counseling psychologists to assist, to make sure that this issue has been, because sometimes you take somebody to court, the judge passes a judgment, the person is jailed for 2-3 years, and he comes out and he continues. They probably, you arrest him again, and I know somebody that was arrested almost 3 times, and all the times he is getting years in prison, and when he comes out, within 1-2 years, he's arrested, and then, so what do we do to ensure that his mind is reconditioned so that those issues cannot, he may not even be interested in that type of business or that type of illicit drugs using, abuse. Now, we are talking of treatment, we are talking of counseling, we are talking of also establishing state governments also, just like the federal government has the NDLEA, the NAFDAC, and so state governments, I think 1 or 2 states are already having boards or bureau that are engaging people, the community engagement, so that there will be prevention, there will be also treatment, and there will be counseling, all within the same organization or agency or bureau that is established by some states. So the fight is not just for the NDLEA at national level. States also have other things to contribute, so that the states are even more closer to the people. They know the culture, they know the antecedents of they know everything about the way of life. So the states also need to come in so that they establish their own statutory bodies to assist the NDLEA in this work. And then the room should be given to experts in psychiatric, experts in counseling, psychology, experts in educational psychology, and those, so that they will look at the antecedents. What are those issues that trigger from the moment the child is born? His mind is being conditioned by those people around him, the environment, and by the time the child grows to a certain level, he definitely goes with the environment. Whatever the environment are modeling him to take steps from what is available around him. So these are key issues as far as I'm concerned that we need to all look around them so that we see where we can go. In a nutshell, I'm just talking about the antecedents, what happened. I'm then talking about what is happening now. I'm talking about what are the consequences and what are we going to do about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And back to Chairman, you have heard the opening thoughts of everybody, and to encapsulate it, the fight is not just for the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency alone, and there seems to be a connection between sister crimes of drug abuse and trafficking, which have become major concern to deal with decisively in Nigeria and the world. How are you going to surmount all this? It looks huge. How are you connecting with the subnationals and the international bodies in all this? Because it is not just about Nigeria now. You have a front at a global level and a major front locally and nationally.
Yes, I would just give a little snippet that the NDLEA works with partners around the world. We work with the British Border Force, we work with the NTA, we work with the DEA. This is, and you've seen them visit. We've received donations of a boat from the British, of equipment from the French. UNODC, we just launched the Standard Policy Guideline, counseling for NDLEA counselors. This is one very important leg of it. The second leg of it, as I said, is intelligence. We are now an intelligence-based organization. We don't just hit and miss. We do calculated work, and I believe Nigerians have seen our work of recent. The amount of seizures from wherever. Some of the people that import take different routes. Some come by sea. Those who try to export sometimes try to dodge out of Lagos, believing that, oh, Lagos International Airport is hot, NDLEA will get us. They go around and try to appear in Kano or somewhere. They still have to contend with us because we'll be there. So we're intelligence-based. We rely on their professionalism, and as I've mentioned, the strategies, which I cannot go into, but they're working. That's what is important. And this is a relentless action now. The maxim is offensive action. Offensive action is actually the second principle of war. War has 10 principles. The second principle, you never win a war sitting and waiting to be attacked or for the drug cartels to present themselves. You have to take full advantage of intelligence and your capabilities, your training, your personnel, and get on with it. Offensive action is working. We will continue relentlessly pursuing this because each kilogram that we seize is 1 kilogram less on the street. And you mentioned 2 million kilograms of assorted substances in the last 6 months, in our opinion, is reasonable. And as I said, it's just the beginning. We're going to do more. The task the President has given us is to clear illicit substances from Nigerian streets and deal with the traffickers and their barons. We're getting more sophisticated equipment now, which will go after the barons, because that's the bottom line. And second is the issue of getting at the assets. As one of the presenters said, okay, you do the deal, you're arrested, convicted, and you're in jail, and come out a few years later to enjoy the loot. We're targeting the assets. And it is in our act that we have the capacity, and we are covered by law, that the NDLEA can go after any Nigerian, whoever he is, if we have reason to suspect, reasonably, that the assets that we are seeing are as a result of the drug trade. We have the power to seize, including bank accounts. Some of these steps, of course, we have to get the authorization from the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, but it is there in the Act. So we are targeting the assets also of the barons, so that, because that's really where it pinches. The whole business is money. 1 kg of cocaine in some places today sells for $400,000, 1 kg. So you can see the size of money. That's why you see them pushing it into all parts of their bodies without shame and without regard to their own personal health, just for money. But the NDA will deal with all these people. We're on it. I want to give the assurance.
Okay, before we go to other centers, I want to leave this to you and Oliver. Is it about arrest, what programs do you have in place? Sometimes we used to use the Nigerian prison service, but now it's called a correctional service. Some of these persons are in this. Over time, it is beyond just maybe attitudinal. It goes beyond. Do you have some kind of psychological programs? Maybe when you arrest some of them, rather than prosecute, you try to work on their sensibilities towards leaving that trait?
It depends. It depends. If you are trafficking, that is actually selling, or we discover huge quantities that we know is for sale purposes, we'll arrest you, seize whatever it is, get a forfeiture from the courts, and see that you are jailed to the best of our abilities. And our conviction rate is 90%. We convict 90% of our cases. They don't go free. That's as far as that is concerned. Maybe you want to say something.
Well, the rehabilitation and reintegration, of course, of persons convicted of all sorts of crime remains a key objective of any criminal justice system. It is, of course, the harder, the more hardened the criminal is. So in a sense, the efforts that are there are, I think, laudable, but probably need further to be strengthened, no doubt. We also have, I think, the issue that many people in custody these days are awaiting trial for extended periods of time, so the justice machinery is not working quite at the pace that it should be working, which in turn, of course, also sometimes damages the cases themselves, because the longer the cases take, the more difficult it becomes often to still get witnesses to come forward. Memories, of course, fade over time, and all of these things have additional negative effects, both on the people that are waiting trial as well as on the system as a whole in getting them processed. But in terms of the I think the main issue when we're talking about the prevention effort and the treatment effort, I think we need to focus much earlier in the game. Once people are involved in trafficking and in major drug use, it's often, I think, more sort of a damage control at best. Where we really need to focus and I think previous speaker mentioned it already, of course, young people, both children in school as well as out of school, and that is a big challenge, because how do you reach out of school children? One of the efforts that we've been pursuing together with NDLEA, the Federal Ministry of Education, and all other partners with the support of the European Union, has been really to introduce a life skill training that builds resilience in young people. It's called Unplugged. It has been rolled out to 104 government colleges across the nation. Several states have picked up on it, Kaduna, Kano, and others. And it really seeks to build basically basic skills in young people, such as emotional intelligence, dealing with peer pressure, having a better sense of self, stress management, these kind of things that make people provenly more resilient, essentially, and delay the initiation of drug use. That's, I think, where one important leg of the so-called balanced approach should rest. The other one is, of course, on treatment and counseling. We've started to discuss that. And the third one is a strong law enforcement effort, intelligence-led and focused on the proceeds of crime. And I think that we are seeing presently really being implemented by the NDLA in an unprecedented manner, and that gives certainly quite some sense for optimism, despite drug use prevalence being very high in the country at the present moment.
Thank you so much. Okay, just a point before we take the first report.
On correctional services. Things are better there now. Things are getting better. Did you know that some time past, convicted barons actually have other people serve their terms. That is to say, you are convicted of an offense and you are given the jail term, maybe 8 years or 15, and somebody else, serves it in place of. But now, as I said, the correctional services have risen to this occasion. They are putting their eyes on it, and it's not happening again, I'm happy to say.
Okay. The other angle to it is, besides those who are into the business of illicit drug trafficking, making money, what really drags people to consuming all sorts of drugs, which is one of the mandates you handle in your office? But that will sustain, we'll return with our other guests from other studios and centers. But after this report from Kano and Lagos, let's begin with Kano.
Kano, a city with many unique features, large, cosmopolitan, and densely populated. For centuries, it prides itself as a major commercial hub in sub-Saharan Africa. Unfortunately, however, Kano was in the last few years Nigeria's #1 in drug and substance abuse.
Kano was #1 in the consumption of drugs of abuse. As at that time, between Kano and Jigawa, the research showed that 3 million bottles of codeine syrup were consumed every day. I'm happy to inform you that before the onset of Corona, an assessment was conducted and Kano State was found to be #6.
Among the most abused drugs and substances are cannabis and codeine. Bello Garba is among thousands of youth whose lives were badly affected by the menace.
It had affected the relationship between me and my family, the relationship between me and my friends, and it have affected my career. I couldn't finish my education. I'm a dropout at university, so it had affected my lifestyle in many ways.
And it lies on the shoulders of our policymakers to come up with a formidable blueprint aimed at putting them on a sound and high pedestal for them to think and believe that they are responsible members of the society.
The Kano command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency says it is not resting on its oars.
I'm telling you, if another assessment is made now, you'll find out that Kano State has dropped again significantly.
The agency is also taking seriously counseling and reformation of addicts.
I've been aware of the dangers and the effect of the drugs that I'm taking, and not even the one I'm taking. Some of them that I have not been into, I have known their side effects.
Kano State government is also working in this direction.
His Excellency now said there is every need for the state to have an agency against drug abuse. That will be complementing the effort of NDLEA and other organs of the federal government.
With enhanced reformation measures, more addicts are expected to be like Bello, who is now planning to go back to school and resume the business he earlier abandoned.
From Kano, we go to Lagos.
Ola Asags and Chudi Maduebuna broke the jinx of addiction to become success stories after their reintegration back into society.
I was into drugs. I was an addict for 15 years. I sold my house, I sold my cars, I sold everything I had. The only thing I didn't sell was my blood.
I started using drugs at the age of 12, when I was in secondary school. And, we were experimenting with cigarette, then graduated into marijuana. I was addicted for 18 years.
In line with the theme of the 2021 World Drug Day, share facts on drugs save lives. Facts from the 2019 drug use survey shows that about 20 million Nigerians abuse drugs, while Lagos State, with about 20 rehabilitation centers, accounts for 33% of drug prevalence in the southwest geopolitical zone.
Every 2 out of 5 people that visit the hospital now is a case of substance abuse. I give you a very good example. Rohypnol is a drug that is supposed to be used for people who have sleep issues, but now, because of its abuse, it is strictly kept under lock and key, and it has to be reported by any pharmacy that sells it, because it is now under the dangerous drugs policy.
I think the issue that we will want the public to know is the matter of stigma. The fact that we must know that it can be anyone. Because if you go to visit your friend and he laces the food, if a trusted friend, maybe jollof rice, and he has put marijuana, or the drink he has put tramadol, and then suddenly you slip off or something, and then, or he gives a sensation that the person seems to like, the person will begin to look for it, come and visit, and then he gets addicted.
The picture gets more scary as the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, the lead agency in the fight against drug abuse, seized about 2 million kilograms of illicit drugs worth 90 billion naira in the last 5 months.
For instance, the insecurity we're talking about, most of these people involved, from the evidences we've been able to gather, live on drugs. And when they take drugs, they lose their minds. And when they lose their minds, they go out and they go in killer mode.
More disturbing fact is that about 10.6 million Nigerians abuse cannabis, making it the most trafficked drug, while opium is said to be the most harmful among conventional and unconventional mixtures. While the victory of Ola and Chudi over drug addiction is cheering, one can only hope that it inspires others to take the courage to break the habits.
Those are reports from Kano and Lagos, and we're just veering into drug abuse-related habits. Let's go to Dr. Magdalene Igbolo. Dr. Magdalene Igbolo, drug abuse-related habits. Besides those who traffic for money, the abuse-related habits remains a problem. And most times we ask, how is the NDLEA and partners handling this? Within your ambit, what maybe is a lot of thoughts in this direction? Because already by the records, the country rep of United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, Oliver Sitesia, was quoted in one of the publications saying that there are at least 3 million Nigerians struggling with drug abuse-related habits as we speak.
I think I want to start by saying that I'm actually impressed to hear that NDLEA has actually, I don't want to use the word woken up from the level they were before now, and in the past 5 months they have done this much within just 5 months. Because looking around where we are, almost like everywhere you go, you find these people everywhere. I teach in the university and I know what we see on a daily basis. Like a lot of young people who just come to class already in a state that you can't really explain. Sometimes they are almost getting to the level of wanting to attack you as a lecturer or even their fellow classmates. And this has been going on in neighborhoods around where we live. We see these people all over the place and so on. And then you keep asking, what is NDLEA really doing? Who are those who are supposed to be addressing these issues? Like doctor said, the psychiatrist said, now they've gone beyond just buying these things from the pharmacy. They are mixing them by themselves. They do a lot of things. You see them with a bottle of Coke. You don't know what is inside the Coke. You just see them carry Coke or Sprite all over the place. But inside the Coke and Sprite, there's a whole lot inside of it. And quite worrisome to know that even those in secondary schools are also doing these things. And even female students. Like I heard sometime, I think, one of the governor's wives some few years back actually took it upon herself to carry out the campaign against drug abuse and addiction among female students in secondary schools. That's really worrisome. Being a teacher and also being a mother, I imagine, every day, what are the children exposed to, when they go to schools and all that. So much can be happening. And if the agency like NDLEA is not proactive, so many more people are going to fall into this same trap. And at the end of the day, we are only going to be talking about arrests. They were arrested and they were jailed and this was done. So I, as a person, would think that the focus should actually be on preventing many more people from going into this same activity, because it's taking a lot from the nation. I mean, look at the issue of insecurity. All of us are living in fear. And there's none of those persons who is engaged in banditry or in kidnapping or in what you call terrorism who is not into drug use. All of them are into the use of one drug or the other, and it's really worrisome. Even those who are into cultism in universities, they all do drugs. So it's really, really worrisome for me. And I want to believe, because, I mean, we know what General Marwa has done, or has, I mean, when he was governor. I want to believe that now that he's back in NDLEA, a lot more will be done to curb this trend, because it's really alarming. It's alarming when you look at the statistics. When you hear that about 41% or a little above 41% of Nigerians are doing drugs, that's outrageous. And it's worrisome, because even when you want to talk about treatment, the government would need to put so much to get these people treated, either through rehabilitations and all that. And so it brings a whole lot of implications, not only on the individual, who will have to, you know, maybe lose some time of his life, like the one that was shown in Kano, who had to drop out of school. That's a huge loss to the nation, not just to himself or to his family, but to the nation as well. And then to get that person to come back to himself, to become useful and properly integrated into the society, it will take the government a whole lot in terms of resources, in terms of training, in terms of counseling, in terms of, I mean, sensitization, to get him back to being a normal citizen that can contribute to the development of the nation. So much is still needed to be done at individual level, at family level, at the community level, at the level of the government. And in fact, everybody that has a role to play in curbing what is going on. There's so much that needs to be done.
Dr. Chuma, well, you are within the medical field. Through this quotation, by working together, we can tackle the world drug problem. Now, I'm looking beyond Nigeria. Really, as it is, what really can be the solution to tackle or to surmount drug abuse-related habits?
Okay. I think it's important that we understand that drug use and the factors that lead to it are often complex. They're not likely to be simple. They're often complex with so many facets to it. And therefore, the approach to managing it is often multifactorial. Or multifaceted, in the sense that so many stakeholders are involved. I think earlier on when I spoke about the possible factors that lead to that. So in managing it, apart from the efforts being made by NDLEA, which is really first to prevent drugs being available on the streets, and then punish those who engage in it, so that they cease to be role models for the young ones coming in. The other aspect of it is to look at the interventions that need to be done in terms of those who are already taking drugs, those who have experimented with it. I believe there are a number of things already available, but it has to be a stepwise approach. There are physical interventions, there will be medical interventions, there will be social interventions, and there will be other interventions, economic and otherwise. like I earlier on said, a large number of users come from extremely poor, deprived backgrounds. And that's something we ought to also look at. The barons will bring in the drugs, but the consumers are mostly those that society, on the margins, on the fringes of society. So we need to actually, as we intervene clinically, as we intervene from the law enforcement point of view, we also need to look at the socioeconomic issues around these people. How do we get people, equip them with the necessary skills to find themselves jobs or to do things for themselves? Of course, education is very important. Education in this sense is talking about drugs, letting them understand the impact of drug use, consequences, in a language they will understand. There's no point coming in with highfalutin stuff at them. They just don't, it just flies over their heads. But we need to, break it down to a language that they fully understand, a language at their level. We need to look at intervention tools and bring it to the level of the users so that they have a clear understanding of what the issues are and the impact it's going to have on them, or it's having on them, and the impact it's likely to have going forward. These are things that we need to do. And in terms of social effect, of course, it's very clear that there's a downward drift. The moment you start using drugs, socially, the drift goes down and down and down. And we saw that in the clips we saw from Kano and Lagos, listening to the people, the chaps in Lagos or in Kano. It's a downward drift. You're doing so well in class, you dabble into drug. Before you know it, less than a year, you're at the bottom of the class. You get involved with drugs at work. Before you know it, you're no longer a favorite at work. You're not meeting up to expectations at work and core, and you begin to face issues to do with discipline. So there are a whole lot of interventions that can be done, but each intervention has to be specific to a group. We cannot use import an intervention, say from Port Harcourt to Kano, may not necessarily be relevant. So each one, a local intervention that's fit for that locality and for the people and their unique problems. And interventions also need to involve religious leaders. They are key stakeholders in Nigeria. Nigeria is a very highly religious society, and therefore involving the religious leaders and lead in those areas in the process of providing interventions, effective interventions would help a lot, or shaping such interventions. And of course, we talk about the medical issues. A high number of them have a psychiatric underlying mental health issue, which needs to be identified and treated. Sometimes intervention, the treatment might be drugs. Other times it might be, as a colleague said on the panel, it might be psychological interventions, behavioral interventions, counseling. I mean, the whole of CBT. There's so many modified to suit the purpose. And it's not just about intervention, but it's also about stopping them going back to the habit. And that's where education comes in. Education, public awareness, education, for me, is the key to stop young people getting into this habit, and those who are already in the habit, getting them out of the habit. It's very much the key.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's go to Kano. Dr. Sarah, listening to the last speakers, I know there's a concept called the change agent concept. Could this work if it's adopted?
It will work. You see, the concepts here is always we look at the, especially when we are talking about those that are using or abusing the drugs. Now, the government directly can take care of the barons, the cartels that are bringing the supply. But you see, when we change the concept, we look at what is happening. If you take like a sample of some drug addicts and then you trace their life story back to when they were born, up to the level of where they are taking the drugs, you will discover that there are many similarities. In Kano, for example, at a time there was a high number of drugs addiction and abuse everywhere, so all the substances. And a research was conducted, and we found that, that there is at least around 14% drugs addiction in Kano. But at the same time, coincidentally, we also found that there are around 14-something% of divorce, which means that from the beginning, the children or the drugs addicts probably they were not even having the initial parental attachment that they were supposed to have. And this is a large city where it was estimated that there are around 1 million divorcees, meaning that these divorcees, they are not living with the husbands, and they are not living, the children are living in broken homes. Then at the end of the day, they don't have the support they are supposed to be getting. And gradually, they were overtaken by peer group and other influences, and therefore they find themselves in this dangerous trend. And you see, initially in our societies, there is concept where the children, where we used to say that in Hausa, we used to say Dana Kowane, meaning that the child is for everybody. If you have a child, the child belongs to everybody. Everybody will take care. Every other person will assist in building his morals, his value system, and even his needs where necessary. You see, gradually this concept has changed. And unless we go back to it, we will be seeing these drugs abusers or these drugs addicts as people different, and there will be stigma. And from the time you stigmatize against them from the starting point, they will increase the level. And before you know it, they will become a serious burden to the society. In Kano here, we have the endeavors, a lot of them, they just like the talks or something of that nature. They live in drugs, they use drugs, they even sell, everything you can think about. But you see, initially, what has, when you ask them what are the antecedents, why are they into this thing, and then you also ask them what will be done in order for them to stop it, you will be surprised that they will tell you that no matter the arrest, no matter the jail time, no matter what, they will still come back to this unless they get a reorientation, and then the people now care for them and they are reintegrated into the society. All these things do matter. And that is why I was advocating the fact that states shall establish bodies that will also take care of these things. Now, this is the issue of family and the society. The family system has almost completely broken down, and everybody even takes care of himself, and the extreme poverty. And these are states where even male children, sometimes, a lot of them out of school. At the age of 6 or 7, someone will take his child to another place for studies or for almajiranchi or something of that nature. And before you know it, things actually are going very, very wrong. And we will understand the fact that it is not just the poor. Sometimes even the sons and daughters of the well-to-do in the society. If NDLA intercepted cocaine, estimated to be about 8 billion naira, no poor person will be engaging himself in that. It is the sons and daughters of the very high, economically buoyant members of the society that will go for that. Meaning that when the family value system deteriorated, you will see so many other things also deteriorating. Now, in addition to the family system and the stigma, another important thing is that, you see, we have interviewed these people severally, and we have found that one is the family value system, two is the stigma from the society, and most importantly, you will see that the lack in skills as to what they are going to be trading. They don't have any business orientation. They don't have any entrepreneurship orientation. And even those entrepreneurship courses that are being taught in schools nowadays, some of them, they don't even go to the schools. And even those that are in the schools, you will see that we have found students in school, technical schools for that matter, but about 10% of them are into drugs. And sometimes when we call 10%, somebody will just think we are talking of 10. But the fact is that if you say 10% of Nigerian people, you are talking about more than 10 million. So the number is large. And from the government side, you see, in recent years, some courses are introduced in the schools. Like we have the civic education. In civic education, the entire curriculum is centered about issues of drugs, human trafficking, drugs trafficking, and all those crimes that we are preventing from the society. We want the students to know that these are crimes, you have to avoid them, these are the consequences of that. And then we have also 34 entrepreneurship subjects where each student in secondary school senior secondary school especially.
Dr. Sarah, that's much we can tell. We'll come back to you for that perspectives. Well, this program is streamed live, and you can be part of the conversation through our Facebook page at NTA Network News, and also our Instagram page at NTA Network. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll resume discussions with the chairman and the country rep of UNDOC in Nigeria. Stay with us.
The vaccine offers hope for a safe country free of coronavirus. I urge all state governments, traditional and religious leaders to take the lead in the mobilization effort within their environment and spheres of influence. I similarly urge all eligible Nigerians to present themselves and be vaccinated in accordance with the order of priority already mapped out at the various authorized designated centers only.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying tuned, and I will resume with the chairman. Chairman, well, a couple of questions are coming from our social media handle, Facebook at NTA Network News and at Instagram at NTA Network. Let me read them out because the bulk of them are directed at you. You address them before we go to other specifics. Beginning from the very last. Debo says to reduce the use of drug, NDLEA should check all pharmacies and hawkers of traditional herbal preparations, also check Suleja area. Jerry, I hope that NDLEA knows that cannabis are now locally grown in most states of the Federation, mainly in Kano and Enugu states. Ibro, there is hardly any tertiary institution or even the primary or secondary schools that are free of drugs abusers. NDLEA and school authorities should look into this. Henry says, It is more worrisome that drugs are now done in the open without fear of being seen or caught, whether by parents, the elderly ones, religious leaders, teachers, or law enforcement agencies. How is the NDLEA going to track this when most areas are not accessible? Let me allow you to address them.
Thank you very much. Now, we have today in Nigeria 58 licensed patent medicine stores, licensed, and over 1 million are not licensed. And these are where I'm now just trying to put emphasis that it's not just the roadside, but the greatest culprits are actually the patent medicine stores, even though we are working with the association. But unfortunately, the law, as at now, says the only qualification for you to open a patent medicine store, you won't believe it, is if you can read and write. So you really don't even need primary school certificate to open one. So you have stark illiterates actually running the patent medicine stores. Some of them are doing abortions, minor surgeries, they sell hard drugs. There's nothing that they are not doing. And the solution really is not just the NDLEA, but the Act itself, the Pharmacists Council of Nigeria Act, which has been in the National Assembly now for about 3 years running. And I want to take this opportunity to call for this act to be pushed so that the regulatory agencies will be able to rise to the occasion and the correct qualifications for opening some of these centers are attained. And the penalties now in the law for a patent medicine store operating illegally, maybe it's like 20,000 naira or even less. So there needs to be harsher punishments. We need to get that act out so that it becomes law. That's as far as that is concerned. On the other issues of roadside and so on, the NDLEA is calling for communities countrywide to set up drug control committees. Those small communities know what is going on in the community. There are children that are consuming the drugs, and indeed those who are selling in the community. These are veritable sources of giving us information. So that's as far as the first question is concerned. And of course, it's our job to clear the streets of these drugs, but we need information from the public. Yes, we are aware. In fact, that's about the cannabis. It's not only grown in Ondo, Edo, Asaba, and so on. We know it's grown in Taraba. It's grown in Kano. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, we located 2 local governments in Kano. But I take the opportunity to say, even as we are dealing with the cannabis being cultivated, and I've mentioned it elsewhere, that we go all out and clear all the bushes. Wherever cannabis is grown, we clear it out, burn the damn thing, and get the culprits responsible, convicted as much as possible. But because Kano is mentioned, I want to seize the opportunity to commend the governor of Kano. He's one of those governors that really, really is fighting drug abuse. He's doing very well. That is one state, for instance, where they do drug tests for politicians. That's a very important, because politicians, they run for public office that will control millions. You give them, you give drug addicts the chance to run for office, and they get there. First, they will wipe out the money buying cocaine. And secondly, half crazy. You can't do public policy when your head is not straight. So I just want to commend the governor for this. Now, the school system, I'm sure Oliver may speak a little bit on unplug. I will not touch on that. But the critical thing, and I think the psychologist in the program, I believe, mentioned it,
yes,
is that we need to get on with putting it in the curriculum. And the Ministry of Education actually has it now in the curriculum from primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions. children have to be taught about the negative effects of drugs right from school. And before that, parenting. Parenting is a critical aspect. Now, parents, whether they're afraid of the children or they're just carefree, they neglect. Parents should raise the children in a disciplined manner and tell them exactly what they should do and what they should not do. They should watch out because of peer pressure.
Let me just interject. We'll
That's
conclude.
right.
Our first caller tonight is calling from Lagos, Oluwatobi. Hello, Oluwatobi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a very wonderful discussion, and I've been following the discussion. It's a good one because we're talking about youth, young people. You know, the young people they are not just the future; they are the very strength and the bulk of power of the nation. And talking about drug abuse, that is the major issue that is facing the average Nigerian youth. And I want us to, I've looked at the different directions that we've been looking at. When you look at the entertainment industry, because you can't talk about, when you're looking at what influences the youth the most, is the entertainment industry. My name is Oluwatoki. I'm saying Toby on the line, Oluwatoki. So when you look at the entertainment industry, you see that it has a lot of influence on the young people. And if you look at that, we are having the uprising of entertainers who push drugs as their major brand. There's one particular one now that the young people take the dreadlock and all of that. As you look at all of that, what is the government doing, to stem the tide of such negative influence? Because somebody said you can write. If I want to influence the people, you can fight and make a law as a government. I will sing the song. And when I sing the song, I that sang the song, I will influence the young youth more than you that put the law. So the entertainment industry has a whole lot of stronghold on this youth. And I believe that if you want to do anything, you want to get it right on stemming the tide of drug abuse, we must look at that direction, looking at regulation, looking at what we must do to make sure that the influence is turned down from that direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Oluwatoki. We didn't mean to misspell your name. Sorry for the mix-up there. Chairman, back to you. You had his concern that the entertainment industry is key.
Because people look up to them, especially the youths, the entertainers. We are partnering with them. They are going to be our ambassadors, but there are some of them that are culprits. I have to say it. And the message for them is to quit the habit. And they should not be ashamed or feel stigmatized. It's a disease. Drug addiction is a health problem. They should seek help instead of pretending that everything is fine and blowing away. So that's really the message. But the key thing, as I said, they reach millions of youth. Youth look up to them, respect them, and they're a veritable tool to walk in this terrain with the rest of us. But they should get help, those of them who need it.
Okay. Before I go to Oliver and other guests, still on cannabis. Okay, let's take this caller, Olainka from Benin. Hello, Olainka.
Yes, this is Olai Daniel from Benin.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, nice program. Drugs are actually eating deep into our society. There was a program that was held yesterday in Benin, and a statistic was carried out. The youth from the age of about, let's say, 14 to about 35, mainly in Nigeria, have been destroyed. You see, a lot of persons, in fact, the kind of drugs that we have in Nigeria, they have different types. The one that will slow you down, the one that will make you fast. You see, look, this is a thing that the government must look into. Our youth are gradually being destroyed. And it is, this is a thing that must, in fact, like as we are talking about it now, you must continue to talk about it. Because everybody is involved. Now, let me give you an instance. There was a place I entered. I said, okay, let me relax. Can you imagine about 3 kind of music was playing? 3 loud music. And then I was not convinced. I said, okay, let me ask them for them to put it down. They said, no, that they are enjoying it. 3 different kind of music playing in one place. That is confusion. Please, the government must work about it. The youth are gradually being destroyed. Things are going. Look, in Benin here, in Benin, if they can, for the kind of names that they have, different kind of names that they call it. Please, this program must be aired and the message must be passed to the youth.
Thank you so much.
We need to pray for the youth because they are gradually being destroyed.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Olua. The ones that will make you go slow and the one that will make you go fast. Well, Chairman, maybe you conclude before I take you on the line of that question.
Actually, he's speaking about the stimulants and those ones that been new. I think I should take this opportunity to speak about Saturday, the 26th. The President, who will be the special guest of honor on the occasion, will be launching on Saturday, 26th, as the actual International Drug Day, the war against drug abuse. This is a war now that the President is going to launch officially to mobilize and galvanize the whole country. Communities, traditional institutions, families, healthcare providers, labor, civil society, market men and women, school children, security agencies, students, everybody is going to be galvanized. And I believe that day he will also tell us more about other government plans. Because as you know, the war against drug abuse is not just about stopping the sale of cannabis or seizing cocaine and so on and so forth. It's deeper than that. We have to go into the root causes of the drug abuse itself. Why do people use it? And one of the contributors, I think the sociologists, talked about poverty, isn't it?
Yes.
Unemployment, frustration, family stress, withdrawal symptoms, the drivers, long-distance drivers. You have so many of these issues, and I believe this is one of the reasons the government is doing 100 million out of poverty in the next 10 years. I believe in the last 2 years, 20 million have already been given. Yes, so these are some of the fundamental issues that it's a war that will be declared, that will galvanize and mobilize the whole country to face this target. Everybody will put his hands together to try and resolve this terrible issue. Let me tell you, just the other consequence. I had a talk recently with a kidnapped victim who was released. And I wanted to understand what actually goes on, in the camp. What type of food do they give you and so on? He said, well, 3 days you survive on water. What about the kidnappers? He said every hour they were smoking cannabis and popping tramadol and all kinds of pills. No wonder they themselves now ask for ransoms in drugs. They ask for money and ask for drugs also as ransom because they are all addicted now. So that's the other consequence of it, which is the insecurity. Everywhere in the country today, you open the newspapers, watch the TV, radios, killings, kidnappings, and so on. All of these have drugs at the bottom of it. So it's really a matter that I take the opportunity to say everyone should stand up and not wait for NDLA or for the Ministry of Health or for UNODC. We all have to go for it.
Okay, I'll come back to other perspectives, but I hear we have another caller, Bruno. Bruno is calling from Abuja. Hello, Bruno.
You are highly blessed. Omini.
Go ahead, please.
This is Apostle Dr. Wachugu.
Okay, go ahead.
I want to thank you so much.
Please just go ahead, turn down the volume of the television set and go straight to the point, please.
Yes, Omini.
Turn down the volume of the television set and go straight to the point, please.
I want to take this opportunity to thank you so much and my in-law, the chairman of NDLA, retired Brigadier General Buba Marwa, for taking his time to fight drug abuse.
I so much thank him for the work well done for the past 5 months now he's been in the office to fight this drug abuse. Also, I want to partner with them and support them because I'm an American-trained crime expert when it comes to crime and to fight drug abuse. There is a lot of strategy, meaning like he said to you, they are using which nobody knows. Why you see a lot of big-time drug dealers have been arrested is because drug is illegal. They have made money. Even the recent people they have arrested at the airport, they were still using the old system. But like Chairman say, strategy has been changed, new implementation. Because both his group and his workers, they have done increase in their salary, in their welfare. And we're going to keep fighting this drug abuse to stop it. I'm one of the clergymen that fight drug abuse, and I will partner with him. I will also make out time to visit him in the office if he can grant me grant my invitation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, Olivia, sorry, we took a long while before coming back to you, and we'll go to other guests. Quickly, content analysis is key here, and data is also key. Let's look at, juxtapose the volume of male-female involvement in drug-related or habits, even though the ones involved in trafficking, and also touch on the issue of the school system, please.
Right. Now, thank you very much for the question, because this is something that we haven't touched upon yet. Now, it's very important to see that in Nigeria, about 1 in 4 persons, drug users, is a woman, 1 in 4. But that is very different across different types of drugs. So, for example, for cannabis, the ratio of women using cannabis is very low, probably because of the social stigma that is associated. It's harder to hide cannabis use. Your clothes smell, you smell yourself, of course, the smoke and everything. When we're looking at tramadol and codeine, we have almost the equal number of users between men and women. And the scary part about this is that while we have 1 in 4 persons using drugs being a woman, only 1 in 20 persons being currently in treatment is female. That means there's a huge access barrier for women. Most likely, again, very much stigma, societal access, basically issues. And we need to start to work towards essentially breaking down those barriers, making it more possible for women to access treatment opportunities. We have actually, with the help of the before mentioned project financed by the European Union, we have created 3 drop-in centers specifically catering for female drug users. Very often also female drug users are also engaged in sex work, for example. And to give them those opportunities to basically get the necessary counseling, the necessary treatment, which of course often for women also includes practical issues such as childcare, women health issues in more general terms. So it's very important that they have these places to go to, and we need to create many more because obviously 3 drop-in centers are literally a drop in the ocean, considering the size of the country and the size of the problem. So this is something very important. The other thing, when we're talking about education, we talked already about the Unplugged program, so I don't want to repeat that. But we have, of course, at the same time, a huge issue with out-of-school children presently in Nigeria, street children, but also children simply who do not have the opportunity to go to school. And how do we reach them? There are about 13 million is the rough estimate. And there is a program called At-Risk Children that has been launched by the presidency. Actually, there was just a launch in Gombe State with the governor of Gombe State. And we are partnering with the presidency in the implementation of this At-Risk Children program to specifically address the issues of drug use. And the methodology we're going to use is slightly different from what we're using in school, because obviously you don't have necessarily the opportunity to bring people into classes. They're not used to that. So that's not maybe the right way of working with them. But we're trying to use sports. Sports to essentially teach the similar life skills that also Unplugged is trying to instill, in order to make them more resilient basically to drug use. And it's absolutely critical because the level of drug use among these vulnerable groups, among out-of-school children, is about twice as high than in-school children. So they're really in need of some assistance in that regard.
Okay. We'll sustain the conversation with Dr. Magdalene Chuma and Yowa Sarah after the next reports coming from Maiduguri and Makurdi, beginning with Maiduguri.
The joblessness and trauma caused by the insurgency in Borno has pushed more youth into sales and consumption of drugs and other illicit substances.
We engage in taking drugs due to lack of job. We sell and consume drugs to ease our depression, no job opportunity, and if we struggle to get one, we don't get supported. So we opted to sell drugs.
So far, from January 2021 till date, Borno State Command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NTA, has arrested 300 suspects and rehabilitated 11.
Last year, at this time, we had only arrested half of that number. So that is to explain that the number of persons engaged in various kinds of drug abuse offenses is increasing. And we are working hard to see that we bring this down to the barest minimum. Those we admit for rehabilitation, we assess them and we look at their state of mind. Those we find to have some psychotic issues, we take them to the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Maiduguri here. We have a relationship with them. So whoever we take from our place for assessment to the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, they are assessed free of charge.
Commonly abused drugs and substances in Borno are cannabis sativa, tramadol, Rafinol, and Penta injection, among others, with many victims looking for an opportunity to be reformed, but due to lack of upgraded facilities to accommodate them, the cases continue unabated.
We have the manpower, we have the competence, we have the experience. If our facility for rehabilitation and counseling is upgraded, I can assure you that we will be able to accommodate more persons that need the services of these facilities, and we will be able to generally achieve more results for the society. The insurgency ravaging the state, honestly, you will track a lot of such challenges to drug abuse.
State NDLA Commander Joseph Icha maintained that if demands and supply of drugs and illicit substances were decimated by carrying out more reforms and rehabilitation, there will be sure and guaranteed victory against drugs crime in Borno State.
And our last report tonight is coming from Makurdi.
41-year-old Doris Wando Tehimba had suffered drug abuse for 10 years before she came out of it. She says she ventured into it due to depression.
Now that I've lost my parents, if I keep doing this thing, I was going down gradually, how would my son look like? So I decided to start going to places that I will find good people.
The use of psychoactive substances among adolescents and youth has become a subject of public concern worldwide due to the fact that it contributes potentially to deliberate or undeliberate harm to the abusers, thereby becoming a burden to the society. In recent times, the abuse of alcohol and over-the-counter medications has increased significantly despite the growth in awareness. Experts believe that the use of these illicit drugs poses threats to human lives.
So when someone abuses substance, an illicit substance, it tinkers with the way the person thinks. Then it affects the person's behavior, his conduct. It can also affect perception, right? The person will not be able to perceive his environment appropriately, right? In some cases, it might lead to violence.
According to the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLA, Benue State hitherto was a transit point for drugs and substances trade, but has now become a destination, which has led to the production of many hectares of farmland, growing cannabis sativa in large or commercial quantities.
You still see farmers who farm Indian hemp, harvest it, dry it, and take it to other states. Drugs like tramadol, rohypnol, Exol, pentazocine. So when these drugs are abused, you see that if the person abusing is a student, his performance in school declines.
To Doris, who is now a campaigner against substance abuse, it is a slow killer and must be avoided at all costs. The attention now is on the rehabilitation center in the state. This is the rehabilitation center of the NDLA in Benue State, where inmates are counseled and rehabilitated. However, according to authorities at the command, it still lacks the status of the international specifications, which has necessitated the call on the state government to partner the agency for efficiency.
The report from Makurdi is the last report tonight on the program. And let me quickly go to Dr. Magdalene. Dr. Magdalene, listening to the last two reports, mostly the one from Makurdi, by way of conclusion, what do you make of it? And what lesson for the society?
I think the report we just watched from Maiduguri and Makurdi tells us a whole lot about what is out there and what we need to do to bring it to, if not a complete halt, but to put a check to the progress of what is already happening. Now, in all of the reports, something keeps resonating. Those who are doing drug will always find areas of their lives being affected, either academically, socially, physically, medically, and all that. Now, academically, we've seen children, young people and children drop out of school. We've seen the academic performance drop drastically. We've seen so many of them go into all kinds of violent activities just because of the substances that they do take. Now, I've had experience with a nephew of mine who also had to drop out of school because he started doing drug and so on. So these things are around us. We see them in our spaces, in our environment, and everywhere. And so it tells us that there's so much that still needs to be done. It's not just discussing it because we want to celebrate the global, international drug day, so we sit and talk about it and then it just ends here, or the little effort that NDLEA is putting. Like the chairman said, it goes beyond just NDLEA. It is the problem of society, and therefore everybody has to be involved in trying to curb this problem, in trying to bring an end to it. It is not a problem of the poor, because the drugs like cocaine, for instance, are not taken by the poor. It is a problem of everybody, because if it affects one person, it will affect you. That same person who is your neighbor could actually lead a gang of thieves and armed robbers and criminals to attack you. And so, like he said, community effort is needed to deal with those ones on the streets. Community effort is needed to identify these young people who are doing these things. I mean, right from the tender age of 12, children in secondary schools who are doing it. And then families need to, rise up to their responsibilities. Because when there's a failure in socialization, it reflects in the behavior of the children and the kind of things they do in society. So there's a whole lot that needs to be done to bring this menace to, if not complete eradication, but to a manageable level. Not like we just heard that in the next few years, if nothing is done, about 20 million Nigerians are going to be involved in in drug abuse and drug use. And something will be really, really wrong at that time if we have over 20 million people doing drug. I mean, right now we have about 14 million and there's a whole lot going on. So if we have 20 million, something is going to really go wrong. So I think that the effort needs to be comprehensive, it needs to be cohesive, so that we don't have to do these things at different times. While when one group is doing, the other group is not doing, and before you know it, it collapses from the other side, and then we go back again in that same cycle. So I will think that if there's a coordination of everyone who is supposed to be part and parcel of this whole fight, that will include NDLEA, it will include the Ministry of Education, it will include the Ministry of Health, it will include the families, because that's the bedrock of every kind of socialization that we get. It will help in bringing this problem to a stop. I mean, if not a complete stop, but at least a manageable level, particularly for the young children. I mean, it's sad when you hear that young children in primary school and secondary school are doing drug. Where did they get to learn that from? It is because of what we see in the society. Like somebody mentioned the entertainment industry. So much is going on there. And I don't know how many of us have had to attend some of their shows. You see that even the performers themselves, before they come on stage, they've taken enough. They need to get high enough to be able to perform. And for the young people who look up to them as symbols of success, they see it as a normal thing for them to do. Yeah, this person is doing drug and he's a superstar. That person is doing drug and he's there and he's there. So I'm glad that the chairman said they are going to work with them, to use them as role models and to use them as those they want to use to teach, to educate the young people. But like he said, so many of them are culprits and they need to be dealt with at that level so they can be good examples for other young people to follow. So there's so much to be done. And I think if the effort is coordinated, it could actually help in putting some checks and helping in the prevention of drug use and abuse.
Too much. Quickly, Dr. Chuma, we don't have all the time, just by way of lessons learned and what future for Nigeria. Briefly.
Quickly, I'll probably use myself as an example. Young kid, you'd be surprised, I was born on the streets of Lagos in Mushin. I was born there and grew up there, and if you're familiar with Mushin, it's the jungle city back then, years ago. A lot of my friends that I grew up with went into drugs, went into crime. Was fortunate, went to a good secondary school and med school and spent time, experienced Nigeria at that level, and then trained in the United Kingdom and worked in the same field of substance misuse, abuse, and forensics. So I had a vast experience of both worlds, working with international agencies there and then seeing what we have in terms of our standards here. And you ask the question, I keep asking myself the question, why did I not turn to drugs and crime growing up? Because close friends, we played football on the streets, we did everything together. A whole lot of them were into cannabis, and I'm talking about over 45 years back. So question becomes, what is it? What made the difference? And those are key. Part of it was, like rightly said by one of our guests, family support at home, then proper education as enlightenment as to the dangers and risk of that, and of course being at school, as much as we talk about peers that might influence you wrongly, there are also peers that influence you positively. So being encouraged to mix with the right crowd makes a whole lot of difference in terms of deterrent for young people growing up. Parents need to, be involved. Parents need to know and advise their words on the kind of friends to keep and other things, and encourage them. Keep an eye on such. And then I'll just take you into something that I sort of noticed. The standard of care for people, clients with drug use issues in Nigeria is highly unacceptable and also highly stigmatized, even looking at it in the clips, that would deter others who want to seek help. The conditions are just totally uncalled for, and we need to look at it. We need to see how we can use the little we have to effectively improve the quality of the environment. That will encourage more people to come in and seek help and be willing to stay.
Thank you so much. Quickly to Kano, Dr. Yau Ahmed Sarah. Briefly, what role should the society play to support what government is doing in combating illicit drug trafficking and drug-related habits? Briefly, please.
Important issue, as I've been saying, that the whole issues concerning drugs is just revolving around the society. One, the society should not stigmatize against those that are already in. Now, if someone is into drugs addiction, the society needs to counsel him, then assist him in all the directives. Secondly, as I said earlier, normally in our societies before this time around, we consider children as sons of others, are my sons. So whatever we do, we assist them virtually in almost every aspect of life. Now, that one will assist so much in the direction of reducing or annihilating totally the issues of drugs addiction and drugs abuse. And then community engagement. The society needs to engage even the NDLA to know what are they doing, what are their purposes. They should understand, they should be made to understand that NDLA is not just for arrest and prosecution. They are also there for reformation and the reintegration of those people. So they need to collaborate together with the NDLA to understand what they are doing and to assist them in doing what is best for this nation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Yau Ahmed Sarah, educational psychologist. He joined us from Kano on the program. Thank you so much for being on the program. And quickly, let me also say a very big thank you to Dr. Chuma Mark Olex Ibokwe and Dr. Magdalene Igbolo. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. Let me start with the chairman. NDLEA opposes legislation of cannabis in Nigeria. Let's begin before we go to quickly wrap up with the 2021 year of drug abuse. Day of drug abuse, I mean.
Okay, just before the cannabis, as we arranged it, give me 2 minutes to speak about drug abuse and drug tests.
Absolutely.
Every young man and woman who graduates from school seeks to get employed. That's always the priority. And what next after that? Marriage. That's the next thing. And we in the NDLA believe, as a suggestion to community leaders, parents, and religious leaders, that one of the veritable means to slow down drug use is to introduce drug tests before you wed. The same way we do HIV genotype in Nigeria, drug tests. And the purpose is not punitive. If I ask the question, would you like your daughter to marry a drug addict? I'm sure you will say no. Yes, so if it turns to be positive and your daughter still loves him, send him for treatment, isn't it? But the first way to go, in our opinion, as a suggestion, is we should introduce drug tests. In addition to all the other, security agencies, students, workers, and so on and so forth. But this is new, it is novel, and it is something to be considered. Back to the cannabis situation. The Commission on Narcotic Drugs voted in December last year on cannabis. Actually, this is in the open. They voted to delete cannabis from Schedule 4. There are 53 members in the CND. Africa has 11 members. 9, including Nigeria, voted against they voted for cannabis to be retained. And it is still retained under Schedule 1. Cannabis is still under strict international control. And even after the voting, the WHO, and I'll quote their statement here, they declared that cannabis remains harmful and has risks of mental health disorder, depression, anxiety, psychosis, and so on and so forth. I don't think we need anything more. And in Nigeria, already 74% of those that are using drugs is cannabis. Of the 14.4%, 10.6 million. We are leading the world. It is life versus money. Yes, if you do the cannabis stuff, there's money in it and so on and so forth, but you are also destroying the nation. It's a choice. That is why the NDLA remains firmly rooted against cannabis growing and cultivation in Nigeria. And in any case, it is still the law.
Okay. In conclusion, give us a picture of what we are expecting on the 26th before Oliver will also say what we wrap up. The International Day of Drug.
Basically, in our own case, is the mobilization of the citizenry. It is the whole society approach that we're looking at. Not only one aspect. We are pursuing the drug supply reduction. Equally, the drug demand reduction has to be pursued both by government, civil society, media, traditional rulers, parents. The whole society has to be focused. That is really what's going to come on the 26th from the president himself, and also he'll be launching the National NDCMP, the National Drug Control Master Plan 2021 to 2025, which will be the roadmap that we will, all the law enforcement agencies and the Ministry of Health, NAFDAC, and so on, customs, we are going to follow that in the next 5 years as our strategy to face and conquer this problem.
Okay. Oliver, before we go, let me allow you also to say what? You're a major partner in this.
Yes, and that's also why I'm looking forward exactly to the same things that the chairman was just mentioning. The National Drug Control Master Plan is a real achievement. It is qualitatively a completely different document than what we had in the past. It really translates the so-called balanced approach into a reality. It gives that famous roadmap for everyone to come together. We will have a tripod of enforcement, of prevention, and of treatment. And I think that sets us on the right path to tackle the drug use epidemic in Nigeria.
Okay. Well, on that note, I'll say we looked at the revived onslaught on drug abuse and cartel in Nigeria. Oliver Stolpe, Country Representative, United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. It was not having you on Tuesday Live tonight. And also Brigadier General Muhammad Buba Marwan, thank you so much for making time to be on the program.
Thank you.
And like you've said, we hope Nigerians have taken your message. It's not about NDLEA, it's about them and you to make the drug war a success in Nigeria. That's it on the program. Thank you for your calls and thank you for all the reports. On behalf of all of us, don't forget to support the NTA in the onslaught against rape and rapists to be a star. Bye-bye.